Yo, 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 what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Blue-tailed Bowhunters podcast. If you're new, appreciate you. Expecting maybe a few new people with the guests that I got on this one. If you're a returner, always appreciate you. Thanks for stopping by regardless. Hopefully you enjoy Lancaster Supply. Dismissed. Hopefully you enjoy the content. This is going to be episode number 34. This is going to be with a gentleman that caught my attention when he started making some gear that just kind of came across my newsfeed at some point and caught my eye, and just looked like it was the top quality, but he was just starting out, newer company, but making really good gear. So, started learning a little bit about his story, and that he's a Marine and ex-law enforcement. So the more I learned about him, the more I learned about his gear, the more I really wanted to get him in and talk to him. So before we go further with that, though, I'm going to do our or I guess my officer down segment. Actually, it's been a minute since I recorded the podcast with this guest, so this is a little while later, but regardless, I'll get to it. This one is going to be a twofer. I know we've been slacking a little bit on getting episodes out to you, so if I can get two of these at once, then it's better for me. So okay, so the first officer that died in the line of duty, his end of watch was on Monday, March 21st, 2022. His name is Trooper Martin Francis Mack III. He was a trooper for the Pennsylvania State Police. Trooper Marty Mack and Trooper Braden Siska was the second one I'll talk about. They were struck and killed by a suspected drunk driver near mile marker 18 on southbound I-95 in Philadelphia shortly before 1 a.m. They had stopped a female driver on suspicion of DUI when they were notified of a pedestrian walking along the interstate. They located the man and were assisting him into the back of one of their patrol vehicles when an approaching car drove by and attempted to pass the police vehicles by driving onto the shoulder. The vehicle fatally struck both troopers and the pedestrian they were assisting. The driver who struck them was charged with 3 counts of third-degree murder, 3 counts of homicide by vehicle while driving under the influence, and 2 counts of second-degree manslaughter of a law enforcement officer. It was the same driver that had been pulled over suspicion of DUI. Trooper Mack was a Pennsylvania National Guard veteran and had served with the Pennsylvania State Police for 7.5 years. He was assigned to Troop K and is survived by his wife and 2 children. He was 33 years old, and again, 7.5 years. So then forward to his partner that was also struck in the same incident there, Trooper Braden T. Siska. He was, everything was the same there. He had served with the Pennsylvania State Police for 13 months and was assigned to Troop K. He is survived by his expectant wife. He had just had 1 year and 1 month on, age 29. So rest in peace to those 2 gentlemen. Appreciate your sacrifice. So moving forward, so the guest on this one today is Tyler Kath from T&K Hunting Gear. Like I said, he popped up on my newsfeed at some point, and the gear just really caught my eye. And all USA, everything's made here in the USA. So during COVID shortage and stuff like that, he didn't have much of an issue getting anything in from overseas because he doesn't use anything from overseas. So just a few things before. I know we touched about it a little bit on the podcast. Kind of went through the gear part quicker than most because I wanted something a little bit different. But I will say, I do believe that I'm not very good at hunting. I just really, really love it. And so I'm not usually ever in here trying to, if you're coming here to try to learn how to hunt, for me, it's probably not a good idea, right? But one thing that I do think that I can have some input on is the gear that I use. And if I'm going to use gear and I'm going to talk about it on this podcast, then I truly do believe in it. I'm not just a timing thing. to use his for me to, promote his gear and not believe in it. So everything that I say about his gear and the reason that I use it is wholehearted. It's honest. But the stuff he makes is just incredible. You'll notice that it is pricey, but there's a reason. And as a starting out as a hunter, you start looking at that stuff like, man, I'm not going to spend that much money on it. But then you really start getting into it. And if this is something that you really love, then obviously you want the top of the line gear. You want something that is going to last, because if you're going to do this for the rest of your life, you want something that you don't have to keep buying. And so for instance, his bino harness, I talked about a little bit on the podcast, but I had bought a bino harness before the year before I bought his, and in 1 year the elastic started going out and it just wasn't holding my binos. So it's like, do I buy a $30 bino harness every year for however many years I may hunt? Could be 20, 30, 40 years, you never know. Or do I just buy once, cry once, buy his stuff, and it's got a lifetime warranty? So I did it. So actually I'll show you really quick on here for the ones that are watching on YouTube. I just bought his day pack, which we didn't really get to talk about. There was a lot of stuff we wanted to cover, or that I wanted to cover, and gear was the only part of it. So I did buy his day pack, though. It's a new product here recently. But I'll show you what I got going on with that. I know it's kind of hard to see what all's going on there, but regardless, it's a backpack that is just overbuilt. I have my Lone Wolf Custom Gear 0.5 strapped to it, as well as 2 mini sticks, XOP mini sticks on the bottom. And man, it's just super nice. So I bought it because I'm going on an elk hunt here in Idaho in September, but then I also am going to start incorporating a backpack more in my whitetail game, and that's I was just messing around with it the other night and put that all together. So worked out pretty good. So regardless, I'm gonna get off of here, stop wasting time. Without further ado, Tyler Kath from T&K Hunting Gear. Enjoy. If you recording, all right, we're going. If you're learning anything about me, it's that I'm not very good with technology, and it never is good with me back. So anyways, welcome to the podcast. Welcome back to the podcast. If you are returning, this one might get a couple more or a couple new listeners. So appreciate you if you are new. Thanks for giving me the time and the listen. My name is Devin Patterson. I'm the host of the Blue Tail Bow Hunters podcast and the kind of leader BTBH. So in here today, I have a special guest. This is a gentleman who I kind of rolled across looking for some new hunting products, and some of his stuff started really sticking out to me, and then the price really stuck out to me, like, holy fuck, I'm not gonna do that. But after further consideration, started looking into it more and started buying his products, and have been just absolutely over pleased, if that's a good way to put it. So without further ado, Tyler Kath from T&K Hunting Gear. What's up?
How's it going, man? Thanks for having me on. And we hear that a lot as far as guys undecided if they want to pull the trigger or not based on the price and stuff like that. But we do get a lot of that end state, remarks of, hey, they were, it was worth the money. They were glad they did it and stuff like that. And it's happy for us because, the last thing you want to do is provide a product that's priced high, and then people get it and they open the box and they're like, this thing's a piece of shit. Why did I get
1,000%.
it? So, I mean, it's good to hear you say that. So it means
For
we're
sure.
doing
Yeah, you are doing something right. And we'll dive in deeper to that. But first of all, I wanted to congratulate you on 2 things. First of all, your crazy amount of success over the last couple of years. That speaks volumes for the products that you are putting out. But second most, and you'll learn that I'm a huge smart ass. So second most is, I know I've heard you on a lot of podcasts, WCB guys, Nine Finger, a lot of those bigger ones, but I do want to congratulate you on finally making it to that top tier and getting on the BTBH podcast with me. All 14 of my listeners, 11 of which came whenever they researched Tyler Kath, are really appreciative of you making it on here. So congratulations.
Well, thanks, man. I was my business career is now complete now that I've made it on this podcast.
100%. If you're not having the paparazzi knocking on your door yet, it's coming.
I hope I just make a ton of money off of this, but we'll see how it goes.
You'll make enough money that you'll be able to get out of that closet.
Yeah. It was funny just talking to you earlier, but anybody listening is, as I'm currently in our utility closet. It's kind of good because we are extending into the other part of the building here, probably beginning of the fall. We've already signed the lease on it. We've got it. We're just waiting for them to move out. They're waiting on another building. And I'll actually have an office, which would be nice because usually I'm conducting interviews in a literally utility closet where mops usually go. So, I mean, it's T&K, man. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just, if you know anything about us, you would see this and be like, yeah, that's just how they do shit. It's
for sure.
Started off small, and we don't have big financial backers or anything like that. So I mean, we started this on a $10,000 loan, and now we just, we graduated to getting on your podcast, and hopefully now getting out of the utility closet. So big things are happening around
big
here.
Goals are being accomplished, man.
Yeah. So
yeah, you're making it in the big leagues. So staying on that that podcast topic, obviously you've done quite a few. So to one, save you time, and two, to be a little bit different and not be completely cliche and like, hey, tell me the whole story about Tyler Kath. Give me the Spark Notes version for anybody that doesn't know who Tyler is and what T&K is, and just kind of real quick.
Yep. So born and raised in Rapid City, South Dakota. Served 4 years in the Marine Corps Infantry, did 2 deployments to Helmand Province, Afghanistan. After I got back, I worked 1 year in corrections. After that, worked private military for a little bit overseas in Afghanistan through the Department of State. And then most currently, before I started this business, I was a law enforcement officer for 5 years here in Rapid City, and went to school for a little bit for aeronautical science. I have my private pilot license, but I was going to actually be a commercial airline pilot at one point. I've done all kinds of crazy, weird shit. I think I'm like one of those guys that, it's like, hey, that's cool. I haven't done that before, so let me try that. And then once I accomplish something there, then it's on to the next thing. But I've been running T&K. Started in 2018 when I was still a law enforcement officer, and here we are. I've got 9 employees. We're getting into some big retail stores, doing a lot of retail now. And then we're extending into this building here, but hoping to keep hiring more people. I mean, we're just going to keep going, and we rely heavily on the patriotic American. I mean, that's who I am. And I take a lot of pride in using USA materials and then using local citizens right here in our community to make this stuff. So, I mean, that's pretty much the short synopsis of kind of who I am, my career path. I'm sure we can get into the sobriety type portion of stuff as well, as, as far as, being a military veteran, and then a first responder as well, former first responder. And then, that's kind of, my days are just kind of, I kind of lose track. I don't even, some days I forget how old I am, because it's just, we're kind of, when you run a business, you're kind of doing the same thing in and out,
sure.
Day after day. Kind of everything kind of fogs together, but no, I enjoy it. I love being a business owner. It's definitely a new type of stress compared to being a first responder or, being in the military, but it's still got its stressors. But that's kind of the short Spark Notes version of who I am and what the company is.
For sure. Yeah. So, and definitely want to get to like the military, then law enforcement and the sobriety and all that stuff, because you got something coming up new. But before we get into all that, I do want to touch on a few things as far as the gear. I do like, my one question is, knowing that you were in the military and then you got out and got into law enforcement, as well as I do, that any any guy or girl in that either of those professions, we like really nice, shiny, cool new gear. So why did you choose to specifically go after hunting gear as opposed to making, gear for law enforcement or military? Because it's very similar in the stuff that you make.
Yeah. Personally, I think it was really when I was doing a lot of research. I mean, I've always been a hunter. And of course, I've used lots of gear in the past in all of my professions. But the biggest thing was just kind of the oversaturation of the market. I didn't see a huge market that had a lot of USA made hunting gear. There's only a few companies that are doing what we do. I mean,
Sure.
Kafar, your big one. But there's not a lot of US companies doing hunting gear type based stuff. I also saw the benefits of a lot of the tactical modular type side of a lot of the gear that I've used, implementing that into the hunting gear side. When I first started, there just wasn't a lot of that out there. A lot of the modular type gear using PALs and a MOLLE system, similar to what you use in law enforcement and in the military. So that's kind of what got my interest is I was kind of looking, and there's a lot of tactical gear companies, Tactical Tailor and some different companies that are doing things, I think, the right way, making it, in the United States. And they do a lot of your SWAT, SRT, military, law enforcement, in general type stuff. And, I thought that there was a pretty big market for plate carriers and, a lot of the tactical type stuff. Sure. And that's kind of when I started kind of looking at intermixing the two, of bringing more of what the military has done since the 9 systems and bringing it more into the hunting community. I saw a lack of that. I mean, like I said, there's only a few companies doing it. I think you're going to see more companies doing it in the future, as far as being able to, backpack or a bino harness or a chest rig where you can take things on, put things on, take things off, and kind of make a system that suits you as a hunter, kind of similar as into a law enforcement officer or a military member. So that's kind of really why I kind of focused on hunting stuff, because I just didn't see a lot of it out there. You go into Cabela's and a lot of these big box stores, I wish they carried more hunting products that were made in the USA, but there's just not a ton out there.
Sure.
It's a lot of overseas made stuff. So that's kind of what I wanted to bring into the hunting community, was more of, targeting that type of aspect with it. So
for sure. So how much hunting, do you even get to do now as a business owner, and you get to try out your own products very often?
Oh yeah, I test our own products. I've got other folks that do a lot of testing, give me a lot of feedback too. And then of course, you may think you've got a product figured out, it's tested, the durability's there, the functionality's there, the comfort's there. And then you're going to continually have to innovate that product over the years. I mean, you're going to have suggestions all the time, or you're going to make changes to the product. So, I mean, when I release a product even to the consumer, yeah, it's as good as we can make it for now. But a lot of the changes and the innovation and really the evolution, I should say, of that product come over years and years and years of just consumer feedback.
Sure.
And what's nice about us is that we make a lot of changes based on what our consumers say. A lot of companies will just say, hey, there's your product, take it or leave it. You know what I mean? With us, it's always kind of continually to make the product better. So a lot of our existing products, like our bino harness, from what it was a year ago, is completely different. You know what I mean? Like, just
right.
has some different changes to it. So I think that's important too, to know about us, is that we're continually trying to build onto a product and make it better. But to go back to your question, I don't get to do a lot of hunting. I try to make time. The only tag I filled this year was an antelope tag. I had deer tags. I've got a mountain lion tag right now. And, but we've been busy with this pack build. And of course, I've got to be there to make sure that things are going right, changes are being made because we make changes on the fly a lot. And then we're right now that it's not hunting season, it's time to really develop a lot of products too. You know what I mean? Not just field testing, but actually getting the poster board and the pencil and the ruler out and actually designing these products and making them right. And the APAC, we've sewn it probably 10 to 15 times before we actually got a final version. So we've sewn this thing a lot, and had to do a bunch of, weight comparisons with different weights in there and figuring out the best comfort level and the best way to fit all these different frames of people. I mean, that's the challenge too. You've got a 6'5" person, then you've got a 5'2" person, and then you've got, all these different weights in between and body structures. So we've tried to do the best we can to make it as universal as possible, but that takes up a lot of my time, as far as it's a lot of office stuff, cutting things down and sewing it and, lengthening it. I mean, it's a product development is just horrible, dude. It's a pain in the ass.
Oh yeah.
But it is enjoyable because it kind of gets your creative juices flowing. But I would say this next year, I'm probably going to be doing more hunting. I'm going to be going down to Colorado for an elk hunt. And, I'm going to be doing some more stuff now that I've got more, I'm hiring more people and they're gaining more,
experience.
It makes it easier for me to go out and do some of that stuff that I want to do.
Cool.
Because hunting is definitely something I enjoy, but it's just right now something I just don't get to do very often. I mean, we're a 3-year company, so we're very still in the toddler stages of, of being a company.
Sure.
So, but yeah, I still
that's
get
the goal is to start that company.
But
Sorry, we got a little delay or something. But that's the goal of the company, or a company, when you start one, is hopefully grind for a couple of years and train people to figure it out. That way you can kind of sit back and enjoy the products or whatever, and do your thing while your company is still going. So it's cool.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's kind of the plan now. So I mean, it's still in just those stages. I mean, we're getting a lot of the crew, they're going with the products and they're doing good, but yeah, it's just, we're never going to be a company that just stops innovating or stops making, products. I mean, we're going to continually, find what products are selling, what products people need, innovating. I mean, and maybe not necessarily innovating, but making new products, making existing products that are in the industry, making them better. And so, I mean, it's always going to be work. I mean, it's never going to be like, hey, this is your smoking gun. This is the one product. Oh, we're good now. You know what I mean? We
Sure. Yeah.
continue to make new products and develop new things because, or else you kind of wither away. That's
right.
Really your growth kind of depends on it. So.
For sure. Well, before we start talking about some of those new things, if you want to, I would like to touch back on the products that I've gotten and found to be awesome. So I have a bow sling, I have a bino harness and dog collar that I use actually for my canine partner. Mm-hmm. So first of all, overbuilt, it's fantastic. But back again, just kind of leading up to it, I started kind of hunting more public land the last couple of years, and I noticed I was carrying my bow in my hand a lot, and I'm not trying to be a pussy or anything, but like my arm would get tired. So I went with one of my buddies, and he had a shitty bow sling, and I could kind of tell it was just kind of tearing apart. And I'm like, man, that thing probably is not going to last much longer. And I'm assuming he bought it that year. So I started really looking, and I'm like, man, it was 140, I think, for the sling. I'm like, man, I don't know. I'll try it out. It's a buy once, cry once thing, lifetime warranty. I'll try it out. And dude, the thing is nuts. I mean, I couldn't tear it up if I tried. It's been through all kinds of shit, to include turkey hunting, when I forgot my seat. So I used it as like my knee pads. Like, I'm just tearing this thing up and just overbuilt. So thank you for making a product that actually freaking lasts.
Of course, man. we get a lot of that with our bow slings, and I mean with everything generally that we build, but bow slings especially, because there is, I mean, you're not going to find a tougher sling on the market. I mean, it just doesn't. We make, I mean, our bow sling is, as you know, it's going to be hard to break that thing. Like, it's going to be tough. I mean, you're going to have to intentionally do something to that thing to break. But there's a lot of slings out there that are like elastic and just, they get loose and they're just made with cheap, shitty material. And of course, you know, people say, well, it's a $30 bow sling. I'm like, well, that's what you're going to get, man. You're going to get a $30 bow sling.
Yeah. And similar to the bino harness, because I went with a cheaper option my first season that I got binos. And I'm not going to put anybody else's product out on blast, but at the end of the season, after just one season, the elastic was stretching and it wasn't even fitting in there the same way. So I'm like, every year, do I keep buying a $30 product, or do I buy once that's going to last me forever? That's a little bit more. And I mean, you start thinking, like, I plan on hunting for the rest of my life, whether that's short or long, but it could potentially be, 20, 30, 40 years, whatever, of hunting. So why not buy something that's going to last that time?
Exactly. And then if you look at the long-term investment in it, it's actually very cheap investment. You know what I mean? And, we make this comparison a lot of the time too, because, you can go out to a steak dinner and spend 130, 140 bucks easily.
For sure.
In a family of 4 or 5. And people do that on the drop of the dime. And I'm just like, well, this is a product and you only have to buy it once, which is tough for us because now, there's a lot of companies that make products intentionally shitty so that you buying them. You know what I mean?
Right.
And for us, that's a little downfall because it's like, once we've got you on that bino harness, well, shit, now we're done. Now we've got to make all these other different products for you to buy. You know what I mean? To keep that, return rate.
On that, I'm glad you said that, because I don't remember if it was one of my podcast episodes or if it was just me talking on Instagram or something, but I was being a huge smartass and I'm like, T&K is never going to last because they make me a product and it's never going to freaking fail. So I could never buy it again. So I'm like, there's only so many customers that are going to do it. I was like, his business, it's going to tank. Just being a huge smartass, but just like you said, man.
Because it is true. After a while, when you start building that stuff, that's going to last a long time. You know what I mean? Your return customer rate is obviously going to be low. Well, return customer rate until you continue to develop products. Sure. And then those customers come back, but it's the same sense. Some of these companies haven't figured out. They're like, well, I'm just going to make something garbage because they're going to break and they're going to come right back. Well, people are starting to learn. Because they're not going back to those products. They're like, no, I'm done. I'm going to go to this product now. So now you not only make a shitty product, but now you're definitely not getting that return customer. And now all the other products that you make, they're not going to buy because they know that piece of gear they got was a piece of shit. So now they're not going to buy. They're not going to buy anything else you make because they know what they're going to get. They're going to get
absolutely
the crap. So with us, it's different because, we get guys that, and our stuff's more high end, but they're more prone to spend that money and buy new products that we come out with because they know what they're going to get. They know they don't to wonder, God, I wonder if this is going to be worth it. They know it's going to be worth it because they've got all of our other, and we're not going to ever spend a shitty piece of gear that I'm not satisfied with. I mean, it's got to come through me and it's my name on that product. You know what I mean? So I don't sit here and think, oh man, now we've got them, now they know the brand's good. So now let's go with cheaper materials and cheaper, that's just not how I work.
Yep.
So
man, Apple's like huge on that. It's like, as soon as their iPhone, we got another delay. You with me? Yeah. As soon as the new iPhone comes out, all the old ones start shitting out randomly. It's like, they got it figured out, man.
Yeah.
The other thing that I wanted to really highlight is, and you touched on it a little bit, is listening to your own customers and developing different products. I've messaged T&K Hunting Gear on Instagram multiple times, and every time you're the one that is the one that's replying, I assume, but I believe it's you. And really helping me through. I'm sure you get a million of questions, the same damn questions every day, but you're more than willing to help me out. And any like sizing was a big thing, because I always fuck something up, so I want to make sure I wasn't fucking anything up. But like, you're there, like it's you, and you're really listening to your own customers, and I think that's huge, and it's a huge part of why you're blowing up as much as you guys are.
Yeah, for sure. I think, it is me. I do have a marketing girl now that does help with some messages and stuff, but she mostly does Facebook, a lot of Facebook, and then the chat on the website. I'll go on there and dabble with some stuff too, but then I'll kind of do Instagram. And then plus people have my phone number, my personal phone numbers on the website. So I mean, yeah, the bigger we get and the busier we get, of course, I need help. You know what I mean? I can't 27 be doing it, but I do, there's a reason I put my, the owner phone number on there. Cause if you were to call, my customer service girl and she doesn't help you or pisses you off, I want you to talk to me. You know what I mean? I don't want to say, well, fuck T&K. I'm never going to, I don't want to deal with them ever again. I want you to call me and say, hey, I had this issue, blah, 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 or whatever it is. So I'm always, regardless of how big we get, my phone number is always going to be on the website. I'm always going to be, because what's the biggest complaint you have with a company is that, okay, maybe you contact customer service and they don't give a shit about your problem. Well, I want to talk to somebody like the big dog. You know what I mean? Right. Somebody that, is going to give me a legitimate answer and stuff. And I think that's always frustrating for me because, I want you to go through customer service if we have customer service people, but if you're not getting the service that you think you deserve, I'm a phone call away, regardless of how. And I think that's important. You know what I mean? I think that's huge. Important. Always be that person that's, because I'm going to care about this company more than anybody that's in this company.
Right.
It's my company. You know what I mean? I started this out of my apartment. So I'm always going to be the one that, cares more than anybody, of course, but, so I think, yeah, that's definitely important because, I see it so many times this year. I mean, I message companies and I don't even get a response.
Sure.
90% of the time, where I'm just like, and I've always told even my customer service gal that I hire, I said, no matter what happens or what questions asked or how worthless you think that message is, respond. Always respond. I'm not saying sit there and have a conversation. There's some people that just like ask stupid shit. Just answer their question, but like answer their question, answer their concern, because that is so important to me. Because companies these days that don't even respond to your emails or anything like that, there's nothing worse to me personally than just not even acknowledging somebody.
Right.
Like
even the assholes on Facebook that you call out, which is fucking hilarious.
Well, I haven't had to deal with that in a very long time because people stop talking shit. Because I think, the hunting industry is very small. So if I call you out, chances are your buddy or your coworker follows us or knows about us or whatever. Mm-hmm. We had an Air Force guy that was being we called him out. Well, little did he know there's people in his unit that actually follow us. And dude, he got shit all day at the work. Got called out by TK, and he was like all red and embarrassed. And it's like, well, it's a small, especially the veteran community and the law enforcement community, dude, it's smaller than you think. You know what I mean? Especially online. I mean, chances are, if you're a law enforcement officer, firefighter, military member, chances are somebody knows who you are on the internet.
For sure. Yeah.
That other companies. They know who you are. They know the unit. Maybe they have friends in that unit. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, and as you know, you make a good product like that. Like, you build a following, and those people will go to bat for you. Like at the drop of a dime, they don't give a shit.
They go to hell. I mean, I had, one guy, that was just being a prick. And I called him out, and he was pissed off because people were messaging him and pretty much telling him, fuck off. You've never tried these products. I said, dude, it's the internet, man. It's once you post that message, you post that message on a public forum. It's not defamation. It's not anything like that. They can hold you accountable. Just like when you're a law enforcement officer, what you say on your personal Facebook, you can be held accountable for.
100%.
That's the way of life, man. And so I tell people all the time, I said, you're going to be held accountable for what you say and do in life. That's just 100% the truth. What you post online and what you do in real life, you're held accountable for. And a lot of these guys haven't. You know what I mean? They haven't. So, when you're a dick to me or a dick to our company, it's a slap in the face to me, my employees, and the people that purchase from me, and I'm not going to take it. So they learn real fast that, hey, this is not a company that's just going to sit there and be like, oh, I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry you feel that way. Like,
here, we'll send you a free sticker.
Yeah, the woke bullshit. Like, I'm not doing that crap. You know what I mean? Like,
no,
it is what it is. I mean, if you don't like what I have to say, or you don't like the way I'm talking, because you're being, and like I've said before to people, I'm like, I've never gone on my way to be a dick to somebody. I haven't.
Right.
Never. No. Running this company, it's always been somebody that's came on and personally attacked this company. And then I'm like, okay, well, two can play that game.
Yeah.
Game on. You're not going to win. You know what I mean? It's just, it's not going to happen. So, I mean, I'm one of those guys to where I'm like, an eye for an eye, dude. And that's how it is. That's how I
love it.
That's how I operate in life.
I love it.
Utmost respect, as long as you show me respect, but it doesn't go just one way.
It's absolutely, and that's something that is huge that I deal with, or that I think about all the time is, on the job, you were met with the same amount of respect that you give. So you want to start off being a dick, I'll as soon as I start talking to people and they're a dick, hey, you want to be a dickhead? I can play that game. Let's go. And then, but they calm down, or you're met with some asshole that's being super respectful. Hey, I got no reason to be disrespectful to you. Like, let's figure this out. So it's huge.
It's like escalation of force, man. It's like that's what it is. It's like, I'll meet you on the level you're at. Just like use of force. You know what I mean? It's the same thing.
Yep.
You know what I mean? If you're going to go over here, then I'm going to be up here. It's not going to be good. You know what I mean? Like, now, if you treat, I mean, and that's where, we look at law enforcement videos that I see get posted online a lot. That is the common misconception. In every video I watch, it's always the action of this criminal that dictates this negative outcome. You know what I mean? What the law enforcement officer did was right or wrong. I mean, I can, there's many cops that don't do the right thing in situations.
For sure.
So we could go on and on about that, but it's the same thing. What led up to that situation? 100 times out of 100, every video I've seen, it's a suspect not doing something that they could have easily done. They could have been calm. They could have been compliant. Now, don't get me wrong. You talk about in law enforcement, not to say that, because he did that, resisted arrest, he deserved to die. No, I'm not saying that. Right. But I'm also saying that whole situation would have never went down if that person would have just been cool, calm, and collective, and just been non-resistant, just done what he was told, and that law enforcement probably would have met him with the same amount of things. You know what I mean?
So and you run into that, like, the woke community, whatever. They don't realize that the way that our judicial system is set up is that you fight that in court, but you're also most of these videos are not with law-abiding citizens. They don't want their day in court. They don't want to fight for their day in court. They just want to try to get away. So then you have this, but that's why the court system's set up. That's why the attorneys get paid a lot of money, and there's judges. Like, whether you agree with the judicial system or not, that's what it's there for. It's not to fight your battles on the street, man. Just simple stuff, man. We could go all day about that.
Well, yeah, it's 100% not to fight your battles on the street. And
Right.
Like I said, has there been somebody that's been wrote a ticket that was not justified? Of course there has.
Hell yeah.
And people that have gone to prison that were innocent.
Right.
You know, nobody's saying that, but the best outcome is you to fight it in court. Like you said, that is how the judicial system is taken up. And you know, when I was law enforcement, I'd tell people that all the time. I said, you may not agree with this DUI that you're getting. I have enough probable cause to make an arrest. I'm not saying you're guilty. I'm just saying I have enough problem. That's what it is. It's probable cause. It's not absolute guilt. You know what I mean? It's not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. You know what I mean? That is when you go to court and a judge says you're guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Here's 30 days in jail. Now it's not probable cause anymore. It's like you're guilty, right? There's hardly any doubt there. But people don't realize that law enforcement are going off of the laws that they're you know, that protect them, that have probable cause. You know what I mean? If it walks like a duck, more than likely it's a duck, but it's not absolute.
More likely.
But I mean, that's, people just don't understand the process of things. And the media and everybody else doesn't do a very good job of explaining why law enforcement officers have these type of arrest powers based off of things, because it's, you know, we don't conduct court in the street. That's not where it's conducted, you know? But I feel bad. I mean, law enforcement officer, I mean, it's definitely going to get harder and harder to find good cops. If you were to go into a high school right now, I mean, like, hey, raise a hand, who wants to be a cop here?
Nobody.
Based of media and the news and everything. I mean, fuck.
To be honest, to be honest, the ones that do lift their hands, I don't know that I can even trust them. Like,
exactly.
You got something wrong with you.
Yeah.
You want to be.
Yeah. I mean, it's
I might be losing you a little bit.
Yeah. It's definitely a difficult profession. And I think just a lot of people don't understand how difficult it is. And I mean, yeah, you've got to make decisions on a split second, and you've got to know, you know, and that's where good training comes in, and experience, but also just education. And I think you look at the downfall in the pit of law enforcement these days, you're going to start getting a lot of cops that, I think the opposite effect is going to happen, is that departments are going to be forced to expedite training, or they're going to be forced to take people that they normally wouldn't take in a hiring process.
For sure.
You're going to actually have worse results. I mean, the worst, you know, I think it's going to be the complete opposite of what they're trying to do as a police reform. Well, you know, are you going to get those good candidates that are smart, intelligent, and well-trained? Probably not, you know, because nobody's going to want to be a cop, you know? So,
well, here's something that I have noticed, is that I have not seen many videos go viral ever since the election was done. If that's not enough proof that that election, and I'm not trying to get political or anything, if that's not enough proof, though, that was obviously on purpose during the election. As soon as the election was over, you saw maybe one or two big videos, viral videos of a questionable shooting or whatever, but then it just completely stopped. And now you almost don't even see it unless you search for it. Whereas the media was just fucking throwing it everywhere in your face.
Constant. I mean, I haven't seen Black Lives Matter in the news since Biden got into presidency.
Exactly.
So did all of these just unjust things just stop?
I can tell you right now that there's still a lot of bad police officers out there making bad judgment calls and 100%. Fucking up. But
100%.
We're not seeing them.
But yeah, that just shows you that the media, it's scary. It just says that they control a majority of voters. I mean, they control who people vote for, because that's where people gain their information, is from the media. So the media, whatever narrative they want to push is what they're going to push.
For sure.
And it doesn't really matter if it's true or false these days, which I have seen. Kyle Rittenhouse is suing these people for you know, and defamation, which I love seeing, because somebody has to hold these media outlets accountable. Because they basically persecuted Rittenhouse before it even fucking was even in the beginning stages of a court trial, jury trial,
right?
Not court trial, but jury trial. And so it's interesting to see how, if the media is learning something from this, that, hey, let's not really report on anything until the facts are known.
I don't think things are going to change because they still got clicks. They don't give a shit about the truth. They want the clicks. I don't.
They're making so much. I think they give a shit about what Rittenhouse sues them for.
Exactly.
They'll settle for $1 million and fucking, oh well. These are $1 billion corporations, man. Fox News
they made a lot of money.
$1 billion corporation. $1 million is like taking $10 out and fucking, here you go.
Yeah.
We don't apologize. Yeah. We just don't want to freaking go to court anymore. It's not that we can't afford it. We just don't get it. That's how it is.
We don't really care.
They don't care.
Man, before we spiral too far into politics, this is the reason why I sit in a tree for a lot of hours a year.
Yeah.
But let's stay on the topic of police force. Or at least all that stuff. So, a huge reason, like I kind of alluded to, of why I hunt and why I wanted to start this podcast was the mental health aspect. Of not just, mental health is a huge issue in the civilian population, but it's also a very huge issue in the military population and first responder population. And a lot of those mix. So you have been, honestly, I wanted to do this podcast a while back because I noticed that you would kind of posted a few times about some struggles. However, I wasn't sure how deep you really wanted to get into it. And we don't even have to get deep, but I didn't know if you wanted to talk about it at all. And it's such a touchy topic, especially with the military. I've not been there. I was too much of a pussy to go, honestly. There's still that piece of me that will always feel that way. So it's hard for somebody like me who didn't go to the military to ask somebody who did go to the military, hey, why do you struggle? What things did you go through and stuff like that? So I really held off on really pulling the trigger on getting you on this until I saw your recent post. So obviously I'd love for you to talk about that. And then as much of the mental health stuff and the addiction and the struggle that you wish to share. Yeah.
So, really starting off, it kind of started in the military. Of course, I was infantry. Without going into too much detail, I did 2 deployments to Afghanistan as an infantryman. That should tell you enough. Yep. I'm not here to tell war stories or anything like that, but I didn't really start noticing until after my deployments that I started kind of drinking heavily. Now, it was one of those things to where, of course, I was a Marine. You know what I mean? What do Marines do when it's the off time? You're drinking, running around with girls. That's just, you're young military member, and that's just kind of what we did, being, especially stationed in California. And for me, I didn't really notice that. I didn't really notice much after my deployments. You know what I mean? Like
right.
Nothing really bothered me per se, I shouldn't say, you know what I mean? Because it didn't really start off with that. And that's kind of the common misconception with PTSD, as far as, mixed in with anxiety and depression, is that it may not hit for 20 years. You know what I mean? It's one of those things to where back in World War II, they call it shell shock, right? Because there was no explanation for it. Right. But they didn't really talk about it. And still, even when I was in the military, it was never really talked about. It was like one of those bad juju words, like, you don't talk about it, you don't think about it, like it's just like it's whatever, right?
Man up and deal with it yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And so for me, and I was always that Marine. I'll be honest, I was the tough team leader, and PTSD's bullshit. Like, just quit being a pussy, suck it up, blah, 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 blah. And so that was my conception. That was my view of it when I was young, when I was 21, 22 years old, was, yeah, suck it up, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't, because I didn't really know how it was affecting me. I just didn't really understand. Well, after I got back and got out of the military, that's when I really started to notice that my drinking was getting progressively worse, especially when I got out of the military. I just found myself always drinking, like, in order to be happy and just like, honestly, to be happy, man, I had to drink. Like, if I didn't drink, I was just super depressed. Life just kind of was like, meh, you know what I mean? It just give me any type of fulfillment. The only time I got it is when I was drinking. So I found myself drinking all the time, and just making poor financial decisions, poor relationship decisions, and just really that was kind of the beginning of the full-blown alcoholic stage. And I was bouncing in Denver after the military, and it got bad enough to where, you probably saw in that post that, my dad had to come pick me up in Denver, take me back to South Dakota. I was 22 years old. And for me, that's kind of when, I got hired doing corrections. And I still didn't really see it as a problem, my drinking. You know what I mean? It was still just, I didn't feel like I had depression or anxiety or PTSD or anything like that. But then again, like, I was drinking all the time. So like, I was numbing out all the time. So of course nothing was affecting me because I was drinking all the time. And I was still young enough to where mentally, like, hangovers didn't hit me as bad. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't, I could kind of push through some of that stuff because I was young. It was easier to recover than later in my 20s when I was drinking, where it was just like, I was drinking more, not, it just, as you get older, progressively parts start wearing out mentally too. Your brain starts going to shit worse and worse as you get older. And so for me, that's kind of, I was drinking pretty heavily with corrections.
I think anybody would if they worked in corrections.
Oh, fuck yeah. Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. I mean, I hated that fucking job. Well, I was living paycheck to paycheck. I think I started off like $19 an hour. I was making poor financial decisions when I was drinking. So, of course, I was like getting myself into credit card debt and everything else. Well, I had a couple buddies that were overseas contractors, and they were making six figures a year. I mean, these guys are making like $500 to $600 a day. So I was like, oh, fuck, I'm going to do that. You know what I mean? Like, again, still young. I was 23 years old, and I was like, well, I'm going to make enough money to just put a bunch of money away, and then I'll figure out something else when I get back home. Well, it used it as a tool. When I went back overseas, I started, I was sober, of course, couldn't drink overseas, but I did notice myself being more like hyper vigilant and just like being kind of, what's the word, where I was like more worried about something happening to me. Like,
just paranoid.
Doom and gloom. I was like, every time we left the wire or anything like that, I was like, fuck, where's the next suicide bomb? Like, I was obsessed over like getting hurt or dying. I mean, it was like to the point where I couldn't sleep. I couldn't fall asleep. And then when I did sleep, I was like oversleeping. I was like just being just a total fucking mess. And so I was like, dude, I got to get out of Afghanistan. All I could think about was drinking. I was like, I need to fucking get away from this shit. Like, it was like hitting stressor points and stuff like that. And I still didn't really understand what was happening at that time. But I got home and I started drinking again, super heavily, every night. I mean, I was, 15, 20 beers every freaking night. Hard liquor I got away from when I was like in the military. So it was mostly just beer. But if I ran out of beer, I would dig into water. I mean, whatever had alcohol in it and I needed more, I would drink it. Sure. Didn't matter what it was, wine, whatever it was. But at that time, my police department was hiring. So I was like, well, so that's when I became a cop. And again, just work hard, play hard. I mean, that's just how it was. And I didn't think, you would go to the suicides. I mean, I was working in a town of 70,000 people. So, I mean, we had the shootings, we had the homicides, we had, suicides. I mean, a lot of big stuff happening. And I just remember, with the amount of work that I put in. I was, my work ethic where I was just kind of, I mean, it was work hard, play hard. I mean, that's just what it was.
Right.
And I was drinking heavily on my days off, and then, trying to control my drinking, but I just noticed it progressively got worse and worse. And that's when I started having panic attacks. It was later in my law enforcement career where I was actually, one night I was typing a report and I thought I was having a heart attack. I mean, I started getting sweaty palms, tingly everywhere. My heart started racing, sharp pain in the middle of my chest. I was like, I thought I was about to die. I mean, straight up. And I actually went to my sergeant. I was like, dude, something's wrong. I don't fucking know. And he's like, well, do you want an ambulance? And I was like, I guess, because I don't know what's wrong. Well, I went into this ambulance and EKG was fine and all that good, all that stuff. And they told me, they were like, dude, I think he had like a panic attack. I'd never had one before, so I had no clue what a panic attack was. I didn't know the symptoms or how it felt like. But all I knew is I was like, I don't know what caused it. I don't know what the transition was, but ever since the first panic attack, then I started getting them daily. I mean, it was just like that, dude. It was like something in my brain, some type of wiring was just like, it just a disconnect. It's like a heavy freaking thunderstorm that goes through, and knocks out the power. Something happened. I don't know what the event was. I don't know what the breaking point was, but something happened to just fuck up the wiring in my brain. Or maybe, when I had to go to a shrink through the department, it was just like, hey, you may have just been filling all this stuff up in a cup, right, and now it's overflowing now.
Sure.
Which is what a lot of law enforcement officers do, is that they think, oh my God, I've experienced all this stuff before. Why now? Why is it affecting me now? Well, it's because you filled the cylinder up with shit, and now it's like it's done. Like it's overflowing. Like your brain just can't process it normally anymore. So for me, I think I was just at that tipping point. It was just that overflow point of where I was in my life, and then it started getting bad, and then I started drinking more and more to deal with that, panic attacks, because when I was sober, I would feel it. I'd feel the panic attack coming on, and I would like rush to a liquor store and start drinking, and then it would all go away.
Sure.
And that's when I knew it was more psychological than it was physical. But the weird thing about panic attacks, anxiety, PTSD is like it affects you physically too. I mean, what you're feeling.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? But it's confusing.
Yeah, panic attacks are terrible.
Oh, they're freaking absolutely horrible because, I was getting them so bad that I'd have to go in my car. My girlfriend at the time, would have to drive me around town, and I would sit there and just like have to focus on like the tire hitting the road. And I would just sit there and just like, you know what I mean? Like almost to the point of like falling asleep before it calmed down.
Sure.
Because once they hit, I mean, it was just like there was no going back. It was like I was in full panic mode, like imminent, like I'm in imminent danger. That's the best way I could describe it. Like when I was in Afghanistan, those big adrenaline dumps of just like fight response, you got fight or flight response. It was just that huge dump of like your body. Like I would always explain it to like, hey, this is what it feels like if you're about to die. Like you're about to die. It's just that huge dump of just like your body's on its last leg of survival. And it. Like,
right.
That your body's about to die. And that's what it felt like for me. And it was scary as shit, dude. Like it was scary, man, because there was no, and then it started getting to the point to where like I was on the job, and then I was like becoming like, you felt like a meth head, dude. Like you're like paranoid. You know what I mean? Like, sitting here looking around, hyper vigilant. And you're just like, oh my God, like, is something bad going to happen right now? And then it wasn't just like, oh, I'm just working, and what are the chances of something bad happening? It was like, we called it like basically combat scenarios going through your head constantly. I mean, it was at like not normal rapid rate to where, and then I'd work myself up too,
Sure.
where I was just like, holy shit. And I'd go home in my uniform. I'd go home for lunch and I'd be like, fuck, dude. Like, I just don't even want to go back to work. Like, I feel sick to my stomach. I'm nauseous. I'm just like, I always felt like I was going to get into a shooting or something bad was going to happen. I mean, it was just crazy, dude. It was like, what's the word I want?
It's a lot of stress, man.
It was just so, but it was like almost irrational thinking, you know what I mean? But it wasn't irrational to me because I had been through those situations.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So it was very rational for me being through those situations, but it was an irrational from my perspective as my job, because what are the chances of getting into shooting as a cop?
Sure.
It's, I mean, the chances are there, but it's just like, it's not an everyday, like you're going out on patrol in Afghanistan. You know what I mean? It wasn't that level of danger in reality.
Right.
Depending on where you work. I mean, maybe like Chicago, that's a difference.
Yeah, maybe.
But I mean, for me, that wasn't, but for me, it was the reality. And so it met with more drinking to cope with this type of stuff. And then it got to the point where it was affecting my work. I was calling in sick. I wasn't, I was calling sick because I was not sober for work, dude.
Mm-hmm.
I was not sober. So I was sick, even though I wasn't sick. I mean, but that's the reality of the situation, is that it really started affecting my job. Even when I was sober, when you're drinking a lot of alcohol, even when you're sober, it starts affecting you mentally.
Sure.
You're much slower. You're fucking forgetful of everything. Of course, I still deal with brain stuff now, being forgetful of stuff. But the older I got, the more, just the heavier the addiction got, it was just a lot worse, where it was like forgetting things in reports. I was forgetting my gun at the jail, the lockbox for the jail. I was like fucking driving around without my gun on.
Yeah, that's not good.
Dangerous stuff, but like mentally, I was just fucking checked out, dude.
Yeah.
Like I was mentally checked out. And
so real quick, were you guys big enough for 2-man squads, or did you drive around by yourself?
No, we were 1-man squads. The only time we did 2-man squads is when we got in like an officer involved shooting.
Okay.
And that's kind of sometimes when we run 2-man squads. The only time 2-man obviously is during PTO as a training officer.
Gotcha.
And then you have a rookie.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I just didn't know if you had anybody directly next to you that was really kind of feeding off what you were going through at all.
No, but thinking about it, it probably would have been, more so of like a nipped in the bud earlier of like, hey dude, something's wrong with Tyler. Like he's forgetting his gun, he's forgetting shit on, in his reports. He's like fucking just like fucking mind fucked. I don't know what is, you know what I mean? But like, it was a huge safety thing, for me personally, and then for other people around me, you know what I mean? Like, but I didn't really realize how much it was affecting me, just going through this, just mentally fucked, you know what I mean? And like I said, you could be completely sober from alcohol, but if you're abusing alcohol, you're getting those long-term effects of alcohol. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So you're getting that foggy brain, you're getting those memory problems and stuff like that. And I started feeling that. And finally, it just kind of, I called in one night because I was working day shift. I knew I was going to be sober. It was 1:30 in the morning. I was still drinking. I was like, yeah, dude, I can't go to work. Like, I'm not going to be fucking in any, as a law enforcement officer. I mean, people say, oh, I had beers 4 hours ago. You ain't sober, dude. Like 10 beers in 5 hours. You're not sober, no matter what you think, there's only so much alcohol your body can process, and it takes time. Time is the only thing that sobers you up.
Yep.
Water doesn't sober you up. Fucking a shower doesn't sober you up. Time sober. And so for me, I got so good, dude. I calculated. I knew when I was going to blow zeros by the time I got to the police department. I would cut myself off drinking, knowing that, hey, I know it's going to take me, and I had a breathalyzer, so I knew, and I would tell myself during the weekends, I knew when I was going to get sober.
Mm-hmm.
I knew when I was going to blow zeros.
That's crazy.
How crazy is that, dude?
Yeah.
And you think I'm the only cop that does that? Bullshit.
Right.
You know what I mean? But that is what I was doing. And I knew when I would blow zeros, and I knew when I wouldn't blow zeros. And when I wouldn't blow zeros, I'd fucking call in. I'd be like, I can't work. I'm feeling sick. And, it got worse and worse as it got because my alcoholism was getting worse.
Sure.
Where I stopped giving a shit. I was like, I'm not going to be sober. Hey, I'm sick. I didn't care about the guys on shift. I didn't care about that shit. It was selfish because alcoholism is very selfish. It's a very selfish addiction, just like any addiction. All you're thinking about is yourself. You don't give a shit about your kids. I don't have kids, but you don't give a shit about your job. Like, it becomes to the point to where there's a functioning alcoholic, right? Then there becomes that next stage of alcoholism where it's like the don't give a fuck stage. You know what I mean? Sure. Where you're just like, I don't give a shit.
Which that's where you get pretty close to the dangerous part.
Oh yeah, super dangerous. And so I called in one night and I was like, hey, I can't come in. I've got personal issues. I need to take a personal day. Well, my sergeant called me that was on night shift and he's like, dude, what? What do you mean personal? What's going on? He was the first supervisor, dude. And
to notice.
Actually be like, what is wrong? I mean, it was fucking crazy. I was that good at hiding it though. You know what I mean? Doing my job. I was coming to work sober. You know what I mean? I was blowing zeros when I got to work. So, I mean, I was doing my job and, but just nobody like really was paying attention to the decline and just the work performance and just the forgetting shit. And just like, I could see it now that I look back, I could see that the degrade in work performance over the years. And so he finally just called me out. He said, what's going on? I was drunk. Wasn't really thinking. I was like, dude, I'm fucking fucked up. I'm like, I'm not going to be able to come to work in the morning. And he's like, I'm going to be right over. That's all he said. He's like, I'm going to be right over. He sat down in my living room and he's like, dude, what is going on? Like, there's like beer cans.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, what's going on? I'm like, I'll be honest, man. I've got a drink. I mean, I just let it off. I was like, there's no hiding it no more. Sure. You can't hide it after that. I'm just like, I got a problem, man. I got a problem. Like, and I don't know what to do anymore about it. And he was like, dude, we're going to get this fixed. Like, he was like, I mean, and then it was like everything was in motion. The chief was involved, the assistant chief. We actually had a new peer support team that was developed to deal with situations like this, with not just like after shootings or traumatic incidences, but like, this type of stuff. You know what I mean? You know it just as much as anybody else. Officer suicides are huge. I mean, they're growing. Like, I mean, it's not unheard of for veteran suicides just be right there with military suicides and firefighter suicides. You know what I mean? Right. Just based on what you see on a normal basis is not normal. It's not normal to see and deal with those things. And that's what people don't get. It's like, oh, you think just because you passed a police written test and in an interview and you got hired, now you're qualified to just see all this shit? You know what I mean? Like, deal with this stuff. Like, it's not normal to take a life. It's not normal to see a freaking teenager hanging from their closet. You know, those aren't normal things to see.
Sure.
And they're not supposed to be normal. And you're not supposed to just like pack it in.
Whatever. Yeah.
You're like, oh, it's fine. You know, I'm a cop. I'm a tough cop. It doesn't work like that, dude. You know, but the stigma, what's the stigma in law enforcement? Get over it. I mean, you got those old school guys that are just like, oh, I'm tough. But deep inside, you know, it fucking, it impacts them. It affects. And anybody that says going to a car accident and not seeing a dead person in the car doesn't affect them, you're full of shit. You don't bring that home. You don't think about that at the dinner table like, dude, that was horrible. That was horrible. I've been to motorcycle accidents, dude, where I'm like, I still think about them all the time. I'm just like, dude, like that image won't leave me for the rest of my life. Just like stuff in Afghanistan won't leave me for the rest of my So it's normal to be affected by that stuff and be like, dude, that was kind of messed up, man. Like seeing a person like that, you know? And so for me, you know, the wheels started turning, and it was like, dude, 2-3 days later, I was out turkey hunting. Girlfriend called, hey, you need to come into town. We got to have a talk. And I was like, oh shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, that's not good.
Something, you know what I mean? Because at that point she knew that everything that was going on with the department and stuff like that. And I had an intervention in my parents' living room there. The chief went there, the assistant chief, super supportive dude. My department was freaking awesome. Cool. And they were like, we've got a rehab facility. It's, you know, it's a first responder one. Speaking of that, if you know any first responders or anything like that, I know a good facility where it's mostly also, it wasn't like a facility where it's like a bunch of dudes you arrested.
Sure. Right.
You know what I mean? It's other cops, first responders, veterans. There was doctors there. There was lawyers there. It was like really, it was a rehab for like you know, those types of professionals, you know what I mean? To where it's like discretion is important. You know what I mean? Like you weren't going to a rehab with, it's like dude with like 8 DUIs, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So anyways, that's kind of I was on a plane, dude, that in my last drink was at the Salt Lake City airport almost 3 years ago in April. That was the last time I touched alcohol. And here I am now, man.
Yeah, man.
I know I went on a rant, but it's very complex. I mean, people need to understand that it's not just like, oh yeah, I was having anxiety, so I drank a lot. Well, I mean, there's reasons why we drink, why we do the things we do. And I hope as the years kind of go on, that more departments don't put that stigma on their officers, because there's lots of officers. I've heard of departments where if they went to their department and said that, they would probably look for a reason to fire them.
For sure.
Out of liability. But that's crazy, because then you're pretty much telling officers, well, don't come to us with your fucking problems because we don't care.
Yeah.
Then your officers are keeping everything in, and then they're still coming to work when they're not 100%. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying, oh, they're not sober or anything, but they're just mentally checked out. They're mentally not there. And you run into issues of officers making mistakes, and then you run into officers not being safe, not practicing safe traffic stops or safe, just doing safe things.
Sure.
Because they're mentally just not there. They're not taking care of themselves. And so if anybody should learn, I mean, you talk about departments, as our department's been huge. They've actually sent other officers to rehab since then. And because they're not that department that's going to sit there and ignore the problem. They're not going to sit there. Oh, that doesn't happen.
And I think that the times are changing. I think especially with social media, but more specifically with guys like you that are being more open and talking about it. I think it's going to be a huge shift. And I think a lot of departments are going to start going to that more rehabilitation more than just get rid of the problem and send it on down the road and, hey, good luck with your problem. Like, hopefully you don't do something stupid, but whatever, you're not our problem now. But guys like you that are sharing these stories that went from being that hardcore fucking Marine, like, fuck your problems, fuck my problems, just be a man and deal with it, stop being a pussy, to where it's kind of full circle now. You've gone through the struggles and you've overcome those struggles, and now you're talking about it. It's guys like you that are really going to change law enforcement, first responders, veterans, all that stuff. It's people like you. So thank you for that.
Oh, thanks, man. I mean, 100%. And I tell those stories because I want, we have police chiefs that do business with us, that follow us on social media, police captains and stuff. And I think it gives them a new insight too, that, hey, don't be so quick to pull, to judge or say that, because some of your best officers might be the ones struggling the most, man.
For sure.
And those are guys that should feel welcome and should feel like open arms, like, hey, if you need anything mental health wise. I mean, it went so far, our department, they hired a department psychologist for the employees. And it's like, dude, we want you to utilize this resource. Like,
sure.
I think more as we kind of, like you said, as the future goes on, I think more and more people are realizing that, this stuff is happening and we need to be able to fix the problem, not just push it down the road, because you're going to keep having those problems, because this is a tough job. Being a first responder is going to come with mental health issues and addiction issues. It's going to. And more people, alcoholics are the best people. I mean, dude, they can keep the best secrets.
Oh, yeah.
Law enforcement officers that have worked for 25 years and they've been alcoholics for every 25 of them. And you would have never known, dude. You would have never known.
Yep.
But I mean, that's where you have to kind of, departments have to be smart about how they're assessing these situations and being able to be better at, welcoming these guys that need help. Because like I said, the big stigma back in the day, I'm saying back in the 90s, I would say more so was like 90s, 80s, 70s or whatever. If you got an alcohol issue, oh, peace, see ya.
Yeah, see ya.
That's how it was. And now, so that's not really how it's going down anymore.
Yeah.
Which is good, because like I said, man, I mean, we get, a lot of first responders that, contemplate suicide, divorce rates. I mean, look at divorce rates in first responders. It's massive. Do you think that's because these guys aren't being impacted, that are not going through shit or going through alcohol addiction? Or like, that's all a contributing factor to all this dysfunction. You know what I mean? Like all,
sure.
And the faster that we, the more realization and the more open and accepting we can be to it, the better, because then you're going to actually do something about it,
sure.
Just put off the problem. Yep. So,
well, if you, so take a second and talk about, obviously I'm looking at the post now, and the reason we brought this up was the healing old wounds. Talk about what you're doing with that.
So that's the biggest, some days I just sit there and I'm like, I need to connect to people. Like, I need people to read something, know something, and know that, like, it's something that they can, connect with, because this business has not always been about, oh, it's money. It's not about money. It's never been about money. I'm fine making, an average salary. I don't need to be rich. Like, I don't give a shit,
Sure.
Pulling people back here right now that are making a good hourly wage. But I also want to connect with people that share the same, things that I have gone through. I mean, a larger, amount of our customer base are first responders, are veterans. Yep. And for me, healing old wounds was really, I've wanted to kind of compile this for a long time and just put it on word form and just say, you know what, somebody out here needs this. You know what I mean? And it's easier for me to talk about now because I am out of law enforcement, and I'm just, not that I was afraid of talking about it when I was sober, when I was a police officer, but it's just easier for me now to say, hey, this is all my bullshit.
Right.
And this is going to help somebody. And I want, somebody else to know that, there are ways of dealing with these problems to heal the traumas you've been through, the things you've seen. And this is how I struggled. And it took me a very, very long time to figure it out and actually get, help myself and get better.
Sure.
Because there's a law, I had, there's a lot of law enforcement officers that just sit here and they're like, there's no hope. There's no hope. You know what I mean? But there is hope. There is ways of getting better. And there are ways to where you can stay in law enforcement and be better, kind of fix yourself of what you've gone through. Like I said, I could go back to law enforcement tomorrow if I wanted to and feel like I have mentally, I can handle that profession better than 3 years ago.
Sure.
100% 3-4 years ago.
So how long did you remain a cop after you got sober?
A year.
Okay.
A
and
year.
was it just you saw this venture with T&K that you decided to?
That's the only reason I kind of really got out of it, because it was kind of one or two things. So it was get out of law enforcement and kind of start my own business, or keep in law enforcement. This business is not going to really grow because
Sure.
I'm working full time as a cop. You can't work at full time as a cop and then expect this business to turn into a well-oiled machine. It's one of the so for me, that was a big part of it. I think another big part of it was I was doing some different medications. I was on fluoxetine, which is like Prozac, for a while. It wasn't really working for me, so I was still getting some anxiety and stuff on the job. Mm-hmm. But now I switched to a different medication. I know 100% that if I had to work law enforcement for the rest of my life, I could do it.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It was just finding the proper medication, which there are lots of first responders on anxiety and depression medication. So that is another big stigma to where people are like, well, I can't go on that stuff. I'll lose my job. Bullshit. Right. I can't tell you how many cops I've talked to all over the country that are on anxiety and depression meds. And it's just, that's part of what may need to happen. You know what I mean? Sure. If you quit alcohol and you need medications to not have anxiety, depression, all that stuff, then fucking go on them.
Yes.
Go on them. Medications. If you had cancer, would you not go on medications to help treat your cancer?
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just, it's the same concept, dude. So I mean, that's kind of the same thing, to where guys have to realize, okay, I have a problem psychologically. I need to do something. And a lot of that is 100% discretionary. It's not like you're on like narcotics or anything like that. There's hardly any symptoms to these medications that I'm on. And it helps me immensely, dude. Sure. I mean, if I'm on these medications, oh, dude, I'd be back drinking 100%.
Yeah.
And I think about it a lot of time, because I hate taking medications where I'm like, man, if I were to, can I eventually get off these things? I don't know if that's ever a reality. You know what I mean? Anxiety, depression, you're never going to treat it. Well, you can treat it. You're never going to cure it.
Sure.
Treat the symptoms, but there's no cure. There's no cure. I mean, once you have PTSD, I mean, it's hard to not have PTSD. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
just doesn't work that way. You treat the symptoms and you do things to be mentally better. Whether that's picking up a hobby, hunting, making gear, freaking whittling a piece of wood and making a duck call, whatever it is, you've got to find that on your off time as a cop, instead of, or a firefighter or a veteran or whatever it is. Instead of drinking, you've got to find ways to occupy your time and your mental health in a healthy way.
A positive way, yeah.
In a positive, healthy way. And I think a lot of cops don't do that, or not a lot, but I'd say some.
Sure.
Some that don't do that. They go home and they drink.
Right.
Or they, or whatever. I mean, they're doing it in unhealthy ways. But I think, that's helped me. I mean, sobriety, making that choice sober, is 100% why I'm here. That was the first, you can't do anything unless you're sober. And if you've got an alcohol problem, you shouldn't be drinking at all. But that's the first step, is like, okay, I need to stop self-destructing, and that's taking away alcohol. Because once I took away alcohol, all my problems in life, dude, seemed to fucking leave. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just a lot of my problems just disappeared,
Awesome.
Because self-destructing. I mean, that's what it was. So,
yeah,
that's the first thing. But it is definitely, I would feel comfortable going back into law enforcement right now at this moment, now that I've been on the right path, I'm on the right medication, I do things that are mentally healthy for me. I'd have no problem, doing it.
It's awesome.
And
so I got a question about the whole treatment part. So
Yep.
we talked earlier about how just times are changing.
Yep.
So something that big has happened in the recent past, and I know, again, I'm trying to be conscious of your time. I know we're going quite a ways,
Well,
but I want to ask you about this. So we're seeing how cannabis has started to change throughout all of America and has become now legal in most states. How do you feel about police officers being able to use cannabis?
does it alter your mental state?
Yeah.
To what degree?
Oh, I
To what?
assume it does, I guess.
Like, I'm not a doctor. My
Right.
opinion is, if it is scientifically, we can prove that it's just like any other medication, you can take it and not, it does not affect your ability to do your job, then fuck it, why not?
Right. Yeah. So actually, right behind me, there's a book up there.
Yeah.
He was a lieutenant whenever I started at the police department, and he's like 6'4", and he fought a little bit of MMA, so he had back problems just from that stuff. But he also had a couple falls on the job, and long story short, he went out on disability, and David Vanderport's his name. He got really bad into the pills because they couldn't do anything. He had surgeries. They couldn't do anything to fix it anymore. And he was basically just a zombie and was still in pain. So it was one of those points where he was to the point, and he's been on the podcast a couple of times, and he talks about he was to the point he was ready to commit suicide. And then he decided, fuck it, why not? I'm going to try cannabis. Same dude that was a fucking awesome cop, probably put a lot of people in jail, maybe prison for cannabis because it was looked at different in his day, is now saying, fuck it, I'm going to try it. And he now runs his Instagram is the Cannabis Cop. I think he's on Twitter as well. He's always on there smoking weed. It's completely changed his life. He's like, I never saw him out of his house whenever he's going through his struggles. Now I see him out and about. He's a father again. He's a human being again. He can get off the couch. So cannabis has 1000% changed his life. And I think it could change a lot of people's lives.
Oh, 100%. And I think the stigma of weed is going away. And I think it should, because it's so funny that our priorities are messed up. And I mean, you can argue it all you want, but how much are prescription painkillers killing people compared to weed?
Oh, it's crazy.
I mean, fucking come on. We talk about, weed doesn't even hold a light. And we're talking things that are fucking legal.
Yep.
That are literally killing people. People are overdosing. Heroin is the same thing as a fucking narcotic. It's a prescription, just like a painkiller, man.
Yeah.
It same type of thing. And it's killing tons of people. And we're sitting here as a human beings and saying, well, and like I said, as long as it's not affecting your mental state, I know there's cannabis in pill form that you can take that help with pain that don't alter your state at all. You don't feel you don't feel giggly and eating a bunch of food. Like, it's used for medicine purposes.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Well, then why not? That's
I'm telling you, it's coming soon.
Smoke freaking weed and be high behind a fucking patrol car.
Right.
I would even say that for people, smoking weed and being high behind a car could just be as damaging and dangerous as being drunk. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because it's altering your state.
For sure.
But if it's not altering your state, you just take it, it's fixing your pain, but you feel like a normal person, then if we're not allowing that, then we're stupid as a human.
Well, and I think it's going to have a huge effect on anxiety as well. So that's what's kind of
100%. I mean, there's a lot of veterans that have smoke weed or whatever that is to help with that. And like I said, cannabis is different from the THC part of marijuana. And you know what I mean? It's different things because now, but I would say, if it's in pill form, like I said, that is something to get behind. If it's like medicine wise, if it's going to help me more than any other medication, well, I don't, like I said, at the end of the day, are you going to do something that's not for recreational use? It's more so for treating symptoms of a mental or a physical disorder. Then,
sure.
You know,
It's coming, man. It's coming. It's about to happen.
oh,
I'm telling you.
and it should, because it's stupid not to. To be
Yeah.
honest with you, I don't know why states are so resilient. You're going to tax the fuck out of it anyway, so who cares?
Well, and that was the thing, man. Is they're making so much money on prescription pills. Then now they figured out a way to make money off cannabis. So now you're seeing all the governments going towards it.
Big pharma, big pharma has been killing millions of people for fucking decades.
Legally murdering people.
Legally killing people, and we're worried about fucking cannabis. Get out of here.
Happy, hungry, and sleepy. That's about all you get.
Well, yeah. Seriously, I think it's stupid. I think, back when I was a cop, when weed was illegal, I'll be honest. You know how many times I freaking got a little baggie of freaking, kids are freaking driving around, fucking throw that shit into the creek. Get the fuck out of here. Care. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not what it was.
I mean, it's not.
That's for sure.
But even then, I just was so. I mean, we used it a lot. Sorry, guys, to get into vehicles.
Oh, absolutely. We still do.
It was huge to us to get into vehicles, and then more times than not, you wouldn't find just weed. You find methamphetamines and everything, because your recreational users, drug abusers they're probably using more than just weed.
Yep.
I mean, they're using weed as a taper, you know what I mean? And then they're to chill them out after maybe taking like some high dose freaking methamphetamines and shit.
Yeah, we see it all the time. Or we call it go away weed, where they're like, yeah, I got weed here, and then hope that you're like, okay, that's all they have. I'm content. Why would he not tell me he has meth in his pocket if he told me he had weed? So, and some guys, and I've been that guy before. I'm like, oh, hey, cool. Like, this is all he's got. And then I let him go. And it's like, that was my way into the car. What am I doing? And then I learned. I got better. But that's how I found a lot of meth, for sure.
Guns. I found lots of illegal guns being held by felons doing. And like I said, but I mean, that's going to be huge now. Is if they legalize that stuff, that is going to be huge to where you can't get into a car now.
Not yet. Because there's still regulations on how you transport it.
That's true. So if you have that regulation, if you can't, let's say they legalize it and they're like, hey, you can't have weed in a car. You can't have it, it's got to be in a sealed container, sealed pouch for home use.
Yep.
So if it's in your car, it's free game. We can get into your car, and that's probably what they're going to end up doing.
That's how it is here.
What is that? Carroll Doctrine, right?
What's that?
Carroll Doctrine, isn't that?
I don't know.
Weed and you can get in.
You probably know more than me.
I think it's like Doctrine, but if you smell, I mean,
yes,
they keep that a lot to where it's like, because that would you'd be letting lots of bad guys go.
Yeah, it still is, because like you said, it has to be, at least in Illinois, it's that way, because if you can smell it, then it's obviously not in a sealed container, and you have to have it in a sealed container. So canine specifically, they're not training a lot of dogs now on cannabis because of these new things, but mine still is, and they're still holding it accountable because there's still those restrictions. So we're still good on it.
So we're still
good. So,
and then plus marijuana has such a distinct smell that you're never.
Oh yeah.
If it's not in a sealed container, even just people don't even realize just a little bit of amount, you can smell it, dude.
Even with COVID, I could smell it.
Oh yeah, it's fucking bad. So I mean, yeah, I'm one of those guys. I'm a new generation guy where I'm like, we need to be doing things that make sense, not just not doing it because we didn't do it 20 years ago. There's a lot of things that are happening that I don't agree with. We're not going to get into that. That are not drug related. The woke bullshit that I'm like, we don't need this. I'm all for evolution and making things better as far as like marijuana and stuff, but like all these different people using the same bathroom and shit, I don't, those are things that we can just keep as they are. We don't need to get too crazy with things,
Sure.
But yeah, there are some things that make sense to be changed versus what we've done in the past, and I think that's definitely one of them. Because they're still putting restrictions on nurses, doctors, and stuff. Police officers in Colorado, weed's legal, but you can't use marijuana as a cop.
Right.
But like I said, there's a difference between recreational. You're using it to get hot, you're using it as to get some type of mental fulfillment because you're you need mind altering substances, whether it's alcohol or drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And then using it for back pain or using anxiety. There's two different concepts there.
Yep. It is. It's coming though. I'm telling you, it's going to be 100%. Cops are going to be able to use it. So, that's one thing that change is good, I think, for mental health for sure. And again, guys like you, Tyler, that are speaking about it now. You're starting the blog. I think that's going to be huge. But just getting stories out there and letting people know that it is okay to reach out. You probably didn't think it was okay to reach out to anybody, or you definitely didn't want to. Your sergeant.
Yeah, you just thought there was big stigmas, but I tell you, anybody struggling, you'd be surprised how supportive department coworkers would be. Because the biggest thing is admitting that you need help, and I think that takes more maturity than anything else. For sure. What I mean? More maturity, both career-wise and just personally wise, and you'll get more credibility and more support if you reach out and do that than making a mistake or doing something very, very bad.
Yeah.
Of your addiction,
and then trying to hide it and
then trying
excuses. Yeah.
Not going to get any support.
No.
So you'd rather be on the end of getting support, and if they don't support you, if you want help and you're reaching out for help, then for one, they shouldn't be in a leadership role in any type of capacity, because they're just ignorant fucking idiots, to be honest with you. So yeah, for any yes. leadership, law enforcement or the military or whatever, if that's just, if you were to turn your back on your guys or not be 100% supportive of getting them mental help or whatever, then you don't belong in that position. 100%.
Yep. Well, Tyler, I'm not going to take any more of your time, brother. Again, I appreciate you jumping on here. I know it was always a scramble. We're talking for a couple of days when to get it done, and you're obviously a busy ass dude. We didn't even get into the new products that are coming out, but where can people find you to learn all about that?
Well, social media, you can just search us on Facebook or Instagram, T&K Hunting, and then TANDKHunting.com. And we're always making new stuff. So I appreciate you having me.
Anytime. Hopefully we'll get you on here in the future as our this friendship grows a little bit. I appreciate everything you've done for me. Even here's another thing to go towards like your business. I bought a collar, and like the dog collar, and like 2 days later you came out that you're putting Cobra buckles on the collars, and I'm like, damn, I would have totally went with the Cobra buckle. So I messaged you directly, and you're like, I got it, don't worry about it. And then shortly later there was my new collar with Cobra buckle. So
there you go.
speaks volumes for who you are as a person, and that's a huge part of why your business is just blowing up. So again, thank you for taking the time to jump on this top tier podcast. This is going to change your life, I promise you. We'll see, I guess. So yep, go follow Tyler T&K Hunting on the social medias. Buy his shit. I wouldn't have him on here, and I wouldn't be talking about his products if I didn't actually believe him. I mean, hell, there's the bow sling right there, and right underneath it's the bino harness. I mean, I believe in it. I'm using it. I wear the shit out of it, and it's still keeping me happy, and it's still rocking. So go get his products. I promise you will not be disappointed. So Tyler, again, appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Yep, anytime. Blue Tail Bow Hunters, we be out. Shit, I'm hitting the wrong shit. I hit start video. There we go. Stop recording.